Have you ever just wanted to like nope right out of society and go and like maybe live on a big rock in the middle of the ocean away from everybody? Well, I'm out today wandering along the Solway Coast in search of somebody who did just that. This isn't just any old island though. This is a tiny island. Let's go and see if we can find it. There's something really lovely about the winter and the gorse bushes being the only little splash of colour that remains, and of course these little flowers are actually edible. Got a sort of coconutty essence if you mixed coconut with grass, perhaps. I spend quite a lot of my time looking at old maps of the areas that I visit. Just looking for things to explore. Ruins, caves, things that are no longer named on modern maps. And something that's really noticeable is that the landscape, the countryside, which we now think of as busy, is quite funny. It's actually really quiet compared to what the countryside used to be like. Even as a child, I grew up on a farm. Even as a child, growing up, the farm was like a busy place. We had our own grandparents there, we had relatives coming over, our cousins and our neighbours, and then people coming and helping and working on the farm. And by the time I was in my early 20s, the farm had more or less became a one-man band with just my father farming it. It became quite a lonely place, which a lot of farmers now find. And yet, if we go back just a couple of 100 years, there was little crofts, little houses dotted all along. They're shown on the maps, little ruins, dotted all along the coast. And there would have been a lot of people knocking about. The countryside actually would have been a pretty busy place, a pretty crowded place. On our farm, we even had a tramp, a traveller, called Charlie. I don't remember him, apparently I was very, very small. My sisters remember him, they're older. And he just slept in an alleyway in one of our sheds. It's a bit sad actually, because poor Charlie actually ended up dying, obviously, in due course. And he has an unmarked grave. There's a small stone but nothing on it, no inscription. An unmarked grave in a local cemetery. I don't know, maybe that's the way Charlie would have wanted it though. Anonymous. Behind me here is Gutchers Isle. Let's take a closer look. In 2011 somebody did a field study here and said that there is traces of a foundation 8x4 on this side of the island. So the island runs from here up there, and it's just this rock. And I think just here on this side is where that foundation would have been. It says in the records of the 1850 Ordnance Survey that a poor man lived on this island in a temporary shed, and that the island is called Gutchers Isle in name of him. Now, Gutcher was probably not actually the man's name, because Gutcher, I believe, translates to grandfather in local old dialect. I'll go down the bottom and investigate shortly, but first, let's make a coffee. It's really cool to just sit here with my coffee, and I brought a little sandwich with me as well, and just ponder what led someone to just stepping outside of the norm and going and living on an island like that. And you kind of wonder if there was some sort of big drama, or if he was just trying to hack out his own tiny little space in a world that was already quite crowded. And the Ordnance Survey records specifically say a poor man named Gutcher lived here. Or I think it says stayed here for some time. So if you were poor and the countryside was busy and every corner's taken, yet there's a big unwanted rock sitting there in the coastline. King of his own domain, perhaps. I always reach for the happy stories, of course, because I'm an optimist. As far as I could find, there was no record of actually when the guy lived on the island. The record I found, the Ordnance Survey record, was from 1850 or the 1850s. And that's the one that said that a poor man once lived here or once stayed here in a temporary shelter. For all I can tell from that, he lived there 100 years before. Definitely makes you wonder. I've not walked right round it yet, but how he got up and down. When I was up there, I definitely wondered about like stepping across. This is why I shouldn't be allowed out alone. Of course, I didn't do it, did I? I didn't do it. Like, as a climber, I can definitely see that you could climb up there without too much difficulty at all, actually. Let's have a look around the other side. I mean, you could get up here, but it's not. I think round the other side looked easier. They're pretty imposing cliffs. But what a magnificent little beach cove that it comes out onto, especially on a day like this. Sadly, I lost my audio here. I was just having a little wander around the base of the island, looking up to see if there was any other access points. And this seems like it would have been the obvious place here. I did seriously consider
as I put my hands on the rock, just going for it. But where I put my foot felt a little slippy, and looking up, it looked like it was wet further up as well, where the sun hadn't been getting to it. So I, unlike me, very sensibly backed out. I super enjoyed the day. It was just such a magnificent, such a beautiful day. And there was something really spellbinding and fascinating about the idea that somebody had once lived, for however long, on top of that tiny, tiny little island. Maybe I'll go back there for a wild camp one day.